This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. What does it take to lead a global distributed team? What skills are needed to succeed? How can you get the most of your team members no matter where they are located in the world? How can you give them the most and make them feel valued and integrated? These are some of the questions we will talk about today with my guest and friend, John Ten Dougherty. We will also talk about his personal journey in technology, how he started leading teams, and what are the biggest joys and challenges that come with the role. And maybe, just maybe, we will get to know the reason and the story behind his nickname 10. Tune in and enjoy the ride. 10, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mateo. Happy to be here.
10, let's get started with the very basics. What do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm a technology leader. I have a background as a director of development in the last couple of roles, and I am also an agile enthusiast. I think that taking development and really many aspects of life, but specifically software development into an agile framework and mindset is really what helps build success. So.
How did you get started in technology and why? What is your story?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, my background is actually in mathematics. So I took mathematics out of high school, not because I knew what I wanted to do with it, but because I loved it. It's like art to me. I went that route because that's where I needed to go, and I knew that that's what I was passionate about. So, um, but after college, I graduated with high honors. I graduated and had a lot of success there, but I didn't go to grad school. And I was like looking at myself in the mirror, like, hey, what am I actually going to do for a living? I did math. It was great. It was fun. But where do I actually go from here? And I'm actually a third generation technologist. My grandfather was writing code in COBOL and had actual sheets and that kind of thing. My father is a solutions architect at AWS, and my mother's a VP of product. I have an uncle that's in software, so it kind of was apparent. It was like, all right, well, I'm going to take on the family business, and that is technology. And so, kind of bootstrapped myself, decided to learn a couple of software languages, built a little application, applied for a job, and at the beginning of 2016 moved out to Dallas as a associate software engineer.
That's amazing. And when we were getting ready for this, I was joking. I imagine what Thanksgiving dinners must be about, right? It just flows
Yeah,
in the family, and everyone understands the language and everything. And you talk often with your family about technology stuff.
yeah. I mean, that was part of why I knew technology was the direction I needed to go. Um, we kind of rib each other a little bit, right? My mom's in product, I'm in development, my dad's in development, right? So there's definitely fun banter that can happen where, my mom will say something or, hey, this is how we're going to go do it, or you go do X, Y, and Z. And I'll be like, yeah, all right, there's the product owner telling the developers what to do, right? That kind of thing. Um, but aside from like the jokes and the teasing, there's also a huge support network there, right? I'll ask my dad questions about architecture or, hey, how should I approach these various problems? Talk to my mom about the challenges that I'm seeing or concerns that I have from my product organization or things along those lines, and get her perspective on things. So the support network was there, and I knew that it was just the right calling. It just had to happen.
I love it. And maybe this is a great segue to explain the 10 in your name.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm John Joseph Doherty the 10th. So there is a Roman numeral X at the end of my name here, and that is for the 10th. My son is John the 11th, and my father is John the 9th. So we have now 11 generations of John Joseph Dohertys going back to Ireland. And honestly, growing up, I went by the name 10. You may see my profile says 10 as well, and that's where that's coming from. And I think, frankly, I talked about loving mathematics, right? That is, I think, part of the reason I loved math. I was called 10 from the moment I was born, and I always just gravitated to numbers, and it was something that I loved. So that's where the 10 is coming from. I go by John. I go by 10. I answer to both. My wife calls me John because I went by John in college, and my parents call me 10, and I've gone by both in the workplace. So
I love it. So I'm about to travel to Ireland for the first time
yes,
next week. Have you been
okay.
to Ireland, where your
I have
family's from?
not. I have been to I've been to the UK. I've studied abroad in London. I was there for a summer. Taking care of some of my humanities courses. It was an absolute blast. I would love to go to Ireland. I haven't gotten to go. But what I will say about this is, um, there's a castle, Doherty Castle, that is right at the edge of where Northern Ireland and the British incursion into
Ooh,
Ireland stopped. So there's a little bit of family pride in where the Doherty name is coming from, and the Doherty's history in preventing that incursion. Uh, so yeah, I have not been to Ireland. I absolutely am going to go at some point. My sister has been. She said it was absolutely fantastic. So that's on my bucket list for sure.
I love it. And then tell me a little bit about maths and how that helps you navigate some of the software development cycle in a different way. Algorithms just come naturally to you, and,
Yeah,
and it's all about logic algorithms at the end of the day.
right.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah, so interesting question. I think two things are true. First is I took math because it came naturally, and uh, doing upper division mathematics, I quickly learned some of it is really hard.
Yeah,
Um, it is a complicated subject, and when you actually get into the upper division math, you move away from as like algorithmic approaches to solving problems. You're not in calculus anymore. You don't have a simple, hey, this is how you actually solve these kinds of problems. And you're moving
yeah,
to how do you prove the theory? How do you prove the background? And I struggled initially with that. It was a different perspective. I actually have a book on my desk. It's called Rudin's Principle of Mathematical Analysis. It's second quarter real analysis. I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but what I will say about that class is it kicked my butt in college.
yeah.
It was the first class that I took that I'm like, oh, am I smart enough to do this? Um, it really was that challenging. I was really frustrated. I was spending nights studying just because it wasn't clicking, and I have that book on my desk because um, it's a reminder, a kind of a humbling reminder, but also because I pushed through it. I decided, no, I can do this. I'm going to figure it out. I put in the effort, and um, after second quarter, I decided to retake it because I had passed it, but I decided to retake it because I didn't understand it. And with a new professor, something clicked, and I actually understood where we were coming from. I got real analysis. I decided to take third quarter, even though I didn't need to, just to prove that I could do it to myself. And it stands as like a testament of perseverance and remembering, like, some things are going to be hard, but if you push through it and get to the other side, you will be so proud of what you've accomplished. And so that book sits on my desk as just a reminder for me to persevere, like a reminder that, I can do it even if something is challenging. I know that with the right focus, we can get across the line. And so that's one side of mathematics, right? It was challenging, but we pushed through it, and it's a reminder to persevere. The other side to the practical and pragmatic elements of, hey, does math translate directly to algorithms and finding logic problems and that kind of thing? The answer is yes, to a certain extent, right? When you're in development, when you're writing code, people think a lot of the work is on the computer typing and just grinding out code, and the reality of the situation is a lot of the work is cerebral. All of the hard effort is thinking through the problem, making sure that you have an appropriate solution, making sure your solution isn't going to cause problems elsewhere in the system,
Right.
and making sure that uh, you know the way that you're tackling is going to set you up for success in the future. And so um, yes, the problem solving skills, the kind of base understanding of the fundamental structures of things like functions, right? We talk about functions in development, but we also talk about them in mathematics and what they mean. Those building blocks are basically the same, um, and really help quite a bit in problem solving and getting those solutions across the line. So
I love it. I come from a completely different background, right? I am an attorney, and so when math got hard for me at the end of high school, I was like, yeah, no, this is not for me. I love arguing. I can read 20 books, like this. So,
Yep.
but lately, I'm 42 years old. I have an 8-year-old, 9-year-old daughter, um,
Yep.
and I started using an app called Brilliant, and you
Okay.
can do math equations, algebra, probability, etc., etc., etc. And it's fun because now I do it with her. So every night
Yeah.
we do math problems, right, and
Love
stuff.
it.
And it's just a way to train the brain. And I have so much admiration for the mathematical thinking, that the,
Yeah.
the the ability to put things in numbers and systems and understand relationship between different things. I think it's super important. And I even go back to how I did, spent 6 years in law school. No math whatsoever, but I should, I believe it should be everywhere,
Yeah.
whatever you are, right? so
Yeah.
uh, so I admire your background very much in that sense.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't change it for anything. And I have a 6-year-old daughter, so she's not quite 9. We were just in the car yesterday coming home. She's like, "I'm gonna be a teacher when I get older." I'm like, "Well, what are you gonna teach?" She's like, "I'm gonna teach mathematics. It's so easy." I'm like, "Yes, I love it. This is great." She's like, "I know how to do my minuses." I'm like, "Okay, so you know subtraction?" She's like, "Yeah," and she was showing me examples. I'm like, "This." It made me so happy. A proud father moment, and I love to hear that you're, um, exercising those muscles with your daughter. I think that it's an important skill set to have. Um, it's not necessarily easy, but just thinking about problems and how to approach them, it becomes really truly important in
Yeah.
everyday life.
Every day. Um, let's go back to software development. What is
Yeah.
it that you like the most about it?
Yeah. So on a personal note, when I'm doing development, there are two things that I love. I love solving complex problems, right? That's the math background, right? I love getting a challenge, coming up with an elegant solution, not just a solution that works, right? You often start with, let's figure out what works, and then how do I actually refine it, make it more elegant. So I love that aspect of it. But I think the thing that I enjoy more these days is seeing a final working product, actually having something tangible that was built. Now, it may not be that I'm building a desk and it's a tactile thing,
Mhm.
but it's a very real sense of accomplishment for building something that's getting utilized, right? If
Yeah,
you have customers that are using something, like that's exciting, right? That's cool. We're capturing transactions and we're building revenue off of something. That's great. Customers
yeah.
are happy that you're using it, and they're happy for the relief that you've provided them. That's the best feeling of success. And I think maybe I like that the most because that's not just my success, right? That's the success of the entire team. That's the
Yeah.
success of everybody from concept to delivery. Achieving something great, and I really really enjoy that.
It is an amazing feeling. When did you start leading teams?
Yeah, good question. So I did development for a couple of years. I did automation development for a couple of years, and it wasn't until what was that 2019 or so that I started leading a team. I had a small group. It started off with running the QA department, and it was only a couple of individuals at that time. But by 2020, late 2019, 2020, I ended up bumping up, and that's when I actually started getting to director roles and actually operating and owning full development teams. So I've been running and managing teams since 2019 thereabout, and having full QA development deployment, kind of the full SDLC as part of that ownership.
And so it's been a while. What do you think are the biggest challenges of leading teams?
Interesting. Yeah, so it depends on the problem, right? It depends on your group. I've seen a couple of different challenges. Um, I'll start with one of the ones that I think is most important as a good leader, and that is culture. One of the biggest challenges that you can have as a leader is having a culture that stagnates your team. This can happen in a couple of different ways. It can happen in team members that are just order takers, not willing to explore or work with you or ideate around a solution, and they're just going to go execute, what the product team is asking them, right? That's
Yep.
a challenge, and you want to get away from that kind of behavior. Um, there are ways to do that. You can meet the team, you can coach them up and say, "Hey, look, um, this is a group activity. This is not just, the product team telling us how to go build something or what we're going to go build, but this is a dialogue. Let's come up and actually come up with solutions as a holistic team, create a safe environment and kind of grow that culture." Um, the other kind of side of the culture are like energy vampires. I call them culture vampires, members of the team that can actually come in and suck the air out of the room, right?
Yeah.
If you've been leading teams for long enough, you'll have some of these individuals and they may be rock stars, but their attitude makes it such that the team itself isn't able to uh, express themselves freely, open up, have conversations, which I think, this is the agile element to me, but I think that is absolutely necessary. We need to have trust as a team and we need to have an open, safe environment. Um, the other big challenge though, and I think, we could talk a little bit more about this one, is when your teams are geographically, located all over the map. We live in a world where, Mateo, you're not in Dallas right now. We're not together, right? We're actually on a Zoom call having a conversation and we are connected globally, which is fantastic. But it can present challenges, right? There are distinct issues when you're trying to run a team and you have team members that are in different states of the United States. You have team members that are in Venezuela. You have team members in Guatemala. You have team members in India and Vietnam. And now you're in 5, 6, 7 different time zones. How do you successfully make sure that communication and team collaboration is happening between your entire group across those time zones? Because believe it or not, software development is a team sport at the end of the day. So you really have to have that communication. You really have to have the kind of baseline, and it doesn't matter, right? They could be contractors, they could be actual employees, but you need to have that teamwork across the board. And so if I'm looking at the biggest challenges in leading a team, particularly in today's, era of software development, it's how do you make sure that your geographically dispersed team is getting what they need to be successful and drive a successful product.
So great segue. Let's dive right into it. How do you do it? Tell me your story. Tell me the teams that you had in the world, and the 10 method for having the best out of globally distributed teams.
Yeah, so my first group that I got to manage was out of Vietnam, and it was a mix of in-house developers and Vietnamese developers. Um, I guess that was the first team that I got to run. The first team that I actually participated in, we had, a team in India, we had a team in the Ukraine, so always dealing with, this kind of different time zones, having to do a handoff, that kind of thing. The way that I solve this problem is on a couple of different fronts. The first is communication is key. You may have individuals that do not have strong verbal English skills, right? Ideally you do, but that's just not always the case. But you may have some rock stars that have strong written English skills, okay verbal skills, but how do I handle that when my team is in house and I have an additional team members in Vietnam and we need them to communicate? Well, what I do is I typically try to incorporate the written dialogue as early as possible into the conversation. So what does it actually look like? It looks like the product team coming together. We're going to do a sprint refinement or we're going to do backlog grooming, and we need the input of the team around these user stories that we're going to be working on in the one of the upcoming sprints. What I do is I ask the product team, hey, let's get these user stories in front of the team before we meet as a whole group. Let's let them review them internally because they have strong written skills, and let them come back with a series of questions that they want to ask us or they need answers to going into the grooming session, so that the grooming becomes a really active conversation around the problems that were identified.
Okay.
Um, so that's one part of the puzzle. The kind of next part of the puzzle is the handoff, making sure that there is good sync between and some overlap between all members of your team, because you do a daily stand up and maybe it's at the very end of the day for the Vietnam team, kind of towards the end of the day for the India team, and the very beginning of the day for the teams that are onshore and nearshore, right? But we all get on the same call, we all get on the same stand up, we provide the context of either what we did today and what we're going to do tomorrow, or what we're did yesterday and what we're going to be doing today, kind of mentality, just so that we continue to kind of build up those muscles and have those conversation points and have the appropriate handoffs, because we need, success is only, defined by our ability as a software development team to get our product across the line and delivered to our customers. And if we're losing days because there's a weird handoff, right? That's real drag on your ability to deliver and your efficiency. And so communication and building an environment where people are able to speak openly and have those conversation points and give them the technology that they need. Look, we live in uh, a wonderful age where real time voice to text can actually be, a tool. So if
Yeah.
you have strong written, you have developers that have okay verbal skills, strong written English skills, we can have a conversation. They can be utilizing voice to text, so they're able to read in real time what we're saying and type in response, right?
Yeah.
So these are real barriers that we can break down so we can actually communicate well and successfully across the board.
And it keeps getting better, right? Technology,
And it's only improving. It's
it's
only
only
improving, which is super exciting.
super exciting. How many people in total did you have at what was the biggest team you managed globally in total, all
Yeah, the
locations?
biggest the biggest team that I've had the honor of managing were six individual teams, comprising of 40 individuals across
Okay.
dev and QA. And so 40 is the answer. And those teams they were in the States in different time zones, although most of the in states were in Dallas. We
Mhm.
had some members that were in um, Colorado, so slightly different time zone. I had team members that were in Venezuela at the time, team members in Guatemala, believe it or not, team
Yeah.
members that were in Vietnam, team members that were in Nepal, team members that were in India. So pretty wide, global distribution of the group. And when I say I had team members in Nepal, I mean I had 3 to 4 team members in Nepal. When I say I had team members in India, it was 3 to 4 in India. When I had a team of developers in Vietnam, that was a much bigger group. That was closer to 15. Handful of team members, 2 to 3 in Venezuela, another 2 to 3 in Guatemala. So it's not just one individual in each of those locations. We have little groups and little pods in each of those locations.
Was it important to you to build rapports it's impossible to build close rapports with 40 people, right? But
Right.
you can do it with
Sure.
a handful of them.
Yeah.
Did you have lieutenants? Did you have people that were helping you? You said very important things about fighting and avoiding a stagnation type culture,
Right.
identifying, energy bolters, etc., etc.
Right.
Do you
Yeah.
think you need
So
lieutenants to do that?
yeah, you need lieutenants or you need a project manager, right? So there's an element of like it depends on the size of the team, but no matter what you're doing, you definitely want a project manager kind of in those locations once your team gets to a critical mass. I'd say if you have 4 or more members of a team in a single location, get a program manager that can help just manage and do some of the traditional management layer for that organization. And so for me in Vietnam, I actually ended up with a big enough team in Vietnam that I actually had two program managers, if you will, and they were phenomenal in helping making sure that things were getting communicated appropriately and moving forward appropriately with the right kind of cadence. But also were point people for me to go to. I had great rapport with them, to your earlier question, where I could say, hey, what's going on with this individual? We're noticing, some inability, or maybe we're not quite getting it. What's going on there, and really kind of help manage the team through those individuals. It's absolutely critical. So when you have a big enough group in a location, I absolutely recommend having that point person that you can talk to. And then if you don't, right, let's just say that you have a small team, but you have one to two individuals, like you have, for the sake of example, you have a team member in Venezuela, a team member in Nepal, and two team members in the States. At that point, 40 is too many. I'm not doing one-on-ones with, 40
Right.
individuals, but I will do a one-on-one with the team lead for that group. And my goal, and, frankly, the best operating that you should have is each team should have a specialized team lead for that group. They don't have to be specialized in any particular vertical, but they need to be focused only on that group. We don't want to split attention. You get all sorts of mess and reduction in efficiency, that kind of thing. So each pod that you create, each team should have a team lead that can help oversee and make sure that communication points are being handled appropriately, that the team members have what they need and understand where they're going, that we're able to um, push back where we need to push back, and make sure that the right processes are being followed. We're talking code reviews, we're talking unit test coverage, automation coverage, we're talking just following standard practices that we say, hey, when we're writing code, this is how we actually structure a function. Something as simple as that. But the team lead becomes my point person to hold the individuals on that team accountable. But at the end of the day, I take a very agile mindset here of the team is largely self-organizing. Their success is their determination, and I will work with the team lead and the members of the product team, that kind of thing, to help coach them in the directions like, hey, looks like we overcommitted to story points here, but should we really be committing to story points, or should we commit to some sort of outcome for our sprint, regardless of the story points? And let's focus on outcomes from what we're actually accomplishing sprint over sprint here, so that we're able to push forward and we can reforecast if we need. But let's make our commitments and keep our commitments. So definitely team oriented, but for the sake of managing, you need to have those team leads on each group.
Yeah, 100%. 10, did you ever had problematic energy vultures, or, people that you had to take out of the team, or considering taking out of the team? Did you ever had such situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been running teams now for 6 years. I've had individuals that can suck the air out of the room. How do you deal with those individuals? So I think first and foremost, a conversation with them is important, right? So um, one of the fundamental methods of how I manage teams and drive culture is I tell people from the beginning, and I reiterate it, and they probably get sick of hearing it, but I say always bring and assume a positive intent. Right? What does that actually mean? That means we are showing up to work every single day with the intention of doing something positive and making a positive impact for the business, for our customers, and moving the needle forward. And if you come with that mindset, perfect, we're all aligned. But you have to assume that mindset as well. What does that mean? It means that, Mateo, if I say, hey, this application that you worked on has a lot of bugs. has created a lot of technical debt, and we have issues around how it was built. Right? That's not me saying, Mateo, you suck as a developer. You should go look at yourself in the mirror and reevaluate your career. That's not what I'm saying at all. We're assuming a positive intent. I'm saying, hey, the system has bugs and these issues, and I'm bringing it up because we need to address not just the bugs and the issues, but how they came about in the first place, right? And so that is the assuming a positive intent, because if you're assuming that I bring that up with that as your mentality, right? You're not getting defensive, right? We don't want to be defensive. This isn't about pointing fingers. This is about building the best possible solution that we can build as a team with the tools and the knowledge that we have at the time that we have it, right? And so having that conversation, like, that's baseline for me. If we're not coming with a positive intent, and we're not assuming a positive intent, right? That's the first thing I'll talk about in a one-on-one, and just, hey, what's going on? You seem very defensive. Or, hey, I noticed that you were kind of attacking this person, and we talked about coming with a positive intent. The way that you were approaching this seemed pretty hostile, and work with the individual. If it's just an adjustment of tone that they need, then that's great. But if it progresses or doesn't change, then you start having the conversations like, look, dude, you may be a rock star, and I appreciate all of the great work that you're doing, but what you're actually doing is, even though you're delivering X, Y, and Z, you're hurting the team's ability to also achieve with your attitude. And this is a team sport, and that's how I look at it. So let's figure out, how you can integrate as a member of the team, or, maybe we'll have to, look at, you know, letting you go, letting you find another team to be a part of or terrorize.
It's part of the role. It's part of the role.
Hmm.
So you've been talking about this indirectly and directly, but what do you think are the most important skills for a leader to be able to?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I think I value Agile Scrum. I've mentioned it a couple times, right? I value Agile methodologies in general. I've usually used Scrum. Um, there's a lot of philosophy around it. I'm not going to get into that. You guys, if you want to like learn more about Agile and Agile Scrum and the Agile Manifesto, there's a lot of documents for that. However, cultivating a safe environment for your teams to experiment, evaluate, re-experiment, and have trust becomes one of the biggest pieces, right? Like, culture is huge. How your team is able to solve problems together is absolutely paramount. And so, as a leader, one of your biggest jobs and one of your most important skills is to be able to foster an environment that is conducive to executing as a whole team, and giving your group the freedom to fail, but
Yeah.
also the freedom to succeed. And so that becomes one of the biggest and strongest, like, superpowers, right? How do you set up an environment where your team can be successful? And for me, part of that is culture. Um, a couple other key skills, I think humility, right? I was having a conversation the other day, and I was asked a question. It was interesting. It was, you're going to have people on your team that know more about, X, Y, and Z than you do. How do you handle
Yeah.
that? And it's like, that's great. Like, you're going to have people on your team that are smarter than you, and that's not a threat. That's not a problem at all. Like, you hire smart people to do the role. This is great, but you have to come with a level of humility, right? You have to come, with a layer of, humbleness to say, hey, look, you are the expert on this subject. I would like to present, maybe differing opinions and thoughts on it, but let's have that conversation. And you have to come with um, you know, you're not there to tell everybody what to do. I mean, this is not a military. We're working together as a group. So I think humility is huge. And then I think the last big piece is transparency and communication. Um, when I say that, what I mean is, right, when you're managing a team, there's going to be stuff that you can't tell the
Yeah.
group, right? That's just part of the job, right? We understand that. But for what you can tell, you have a responsibility to be transparent with the group. You have a um, responsibility from the business side to let your team know, hey guys, we're going to go execute, this project for X, Y, and Z reasons, and have a conversation. And maybe the team doesn't agree with the approach, and we can, of course, bring in the right individuals to have that conversation. But at the end of the day, right, we want to make sure that the team understands why we're doing what we're doing and have that layer of transparency. But also, you know, there might just be business things that are happening as well, and
Mm.
provide some transparency then there and around that. Like, hey guys, I would totally love to be able to, bring on this new tool, but the truth of the matter is, we need to focus on additional profitability before we can actually start buying more tools. And so we're going to focus on this feature first so that we can, generate that revenue so that we can go fund these other things, right? But the transparency goes the other way as well, right? Part of the reason I got into management, part of the reason why going into management was important to me is because I had seen situations and I had been part of situations where the individuals that were doing the work, the boots on the ground, if you were noticing problems with how we were approaching our solutions. And, frankly, noticing like, hey, we have this big project with a big deadline. We haven't started it and we need 9 months or whatever it is to do it. We'll iterate over it, of course, but, to call it complete, we're going to need, a good roadway here. And we have 6 months to achieve it, right? What's going on? We need to get this started. And so, the transparency goes up the chain as well, right? I think that one of the most important skills is being able to communicate at the executive level to say, hey, my team needs X, Y, and Z, or we need to start on this feature, or here are the trade-offs, right? We can go and do this project. And, we are very capable, and it's going to take us a projected this amount of time. This isn't a commitment to say it's going to take us 8 weeks, but we're projecting it's going to take us 8 weeks to do it. But if we do this other project, we enable ourselves to do other things, right? So you can communicate up as well as communicating down and having the transparency of where we are kind of between executive management and the boots on the ground. Hugely important in
100%.
leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree. We could keep going forever.
hmm
I want to ask you this though.
Yeah.
You've been leading teams for a while, and we talked about the challenges and we talked about everything, but what are the most rewarding aspects of leading teams? What drives you and motivates you?
Um, Growth. So I'm not talking about my personal growth. I'm talking about the growth of the individuals and the growth of the team as a whole. Um, One of the most empowering and positive feelings you can have is helping a team come together, providing them what they need, doing the servant leadership thing of unblocking them where they're blocked, enabling where they want to go, and seeing that group of individuals starting to perform um, is absolutely just the best thing. And this isn't just technology, right? This expands out, right? Like yeah, I used to play D&D regularly, and seeing a D&D team get together and actually achieve and perform beyond the capabilities of the individual members, right? That's the stuff that's like, yeah, if we can get there, if I can have a group of individuals that are like, we got this, we're going to go own it, and you trust them enough to take care of it, and you're like, look, let me know how that goes, let me know if there's anything I can do to unblock you, but go take it on, and go conquer the world, or go conquer this project, right? That is the most fun that you can have, I feel like, as a leader in general.
I love it. I love it. And what's next for you? What's your next chapter?
Yeah. So I've done the director role for about 5, going on 6 years now. I really enjoy it. I've always envisioned myself going into executive management, though. So for me, what's next? Senior director, VP of engineering roles are something that I'm interested in, and ultimately growing my career into a CTO like role or even COO role. I like working as a team and enabling individuals, and that doesn't have to be in technology, although I love technology. But yeah, executive roles is ultimately where I want my career to go. And the next thing is going to be a senior director, VP level role at least.
I'm sure, and I hope that I stay in touch to see all of that growth that I'm sure will happen. Um, then one last question to you: what do you do when you are not working?
I love that question. I mentioned earlier that I'm a dad. So I said I had a daughter at 6. I have a son at 5. John just retorted the 11th. She'll recall from earlier. And then I have twin boys. Their names are Owen and Dara, and they are 2 years old. So I do spend a lot of time being a dad, right? That comes with the territory. I've got young kids, um, and doing all the dad things with that. When I can get away, what I like to do is play Magic the Gathering. It's a
Nice.
strategic game. It's deck building. It's um, planning for particular cases. When you actually get together, I play a format called Commander. So there's 4 players sitting around a table, right? There's politics. There's camaraderie. There's friendship. I've gotten actually a group together. Um, we have a really good pod. We get together at least once a month where we play games for card games for 8 hours at a time. But even beyond that, we run tournaments. Actually, this weekend, we have a tournament that we'll be hosting at one of our game stores, and we have a number of members signed up. So we have prizes. It was a $25 buy-in. I'll be running the tournament, and we're going to sit down and play for 8 hours as a whole tournament, and um, it's always fun, right? I mean, I like being a member of a community. I like having that level of camaraderie, and it's a deck building challenge, right? We had rules around, hey, you can only have a certain power level of your deck, and you have to fit these various criteria. And then we all show up and we say, okay, well, who built the best deck, or who's able to pilot it the best? And there's variance, of course, in it, so there's a random chance. So Magic the Gathering, I could go on for hours and hours about it, but I love playing Magic the Gathering and actually spending some time and uh, doing the strategy, team building, and uh, politicking. It's fun.
I love it. I love it. Is there good food involved as well? I imagine if you're playing 8 hours
Yeah,
straight,
yeah.
or
So yeah, we'll always. So this one's at the game store, so our ability to bring food is a little bit limited. But when we play at somebody's home, we're always have appropriate snacks. We'll make some food. We'll make cookies, that kind of thing, and just generally have a good time. Break bread, visit, hang out, and try to kill each other in card games.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you play? Did you stop playing D&D, or do you still play from time to time?
I still play from time to time. So I mentioned that game store a little bit. I don't know, just 2 months ago, they asked me to, I'm a regular, so they're like, hey, would you host this one shot for the community? And so I did. I hosted and kind of led a one shot campaign with a bunch of random people I'd never met before. And so I'll do that on occasion, or I'll play like once, every quarter at most. It's just harder to get a group of people together to play D&D for some reason than it is to do something like Magic the Gathering. But it's something that I love. I'm
Got it.
still plugged into. And yeah, there's a critically acclaimed YouTube show called Critical Role. They stream on Twitch and YouTube and other platforms, but I still follow them and watch them do their gameplay. So still pretty well plugged into the D&D world, but don't play it like I used to. That's for sure.
Got it. Very good. Ten. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I hope that we stay in touch and we do it again sometime in the future.
I would love that, Mateo. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.